Hi Greenheart community, and welcome to today's episode of Greenheart at Home. My name is Miss Allie, and today we're going to join Miss Amanda to learn a special culinary technique used to preserve food called pickling. She just got back from one of our Greenheart gardens where she harvested some radishes, which are a root vegetable, and she's going to teach us how to use pickling to preserve these radishes. Now, before we get started, we're going to go over our 3 Greenheart rules of respect to have them fresh in our mind as we go through our lesson today. The first thing that we respect in Greenheart is we respect ourselves. When we're working in the kitchen, it's important that we practice respect for ourselves by being careful with our bodies and by making sure that we're using our culinary tools like knives in a safe way. The second thing that we respect in Greenheart is we respect our Greenheart buddies. If you're working in the kitchen with a family member or a friend, make sure you're showing respect by following directions, by listening, and by being careful with the materials that you're using. And the third thing that we respect is we respect the earth. In our lesson today, we're going to practice respect for the earth by making sure that we clean up after ourselves and making sure we keep our kitchen space clean. Another great way to practice respect for the earth in a culinary lesson is by composting our food scraps so that they can be recycled and turned back into soil that can help us grow more plants in the future. Now, before we send it to Miss Amanda, let's quickly define what it means to pickle something. I want you to take a second and think in your brain what you think of when you hear the word pickle. For most people, when they think of a pickle, they think of the pickled cucumbers that are generally seen in the grocery store, on sandwiches, on burgers, and commonly enjoyed by a lot of people. That being said, you can pickle just about anything. Pickles aren't just the cucumbers that you see, but instead, it's actually the technique that you use to preserve food. Pickling began over 4,000 years ago using cucumbers native to India. It was used as a way to preserve foods so that they could be eaten when not in season or taken along on long journeys, especially by sea. The process of pickling is considered a technology that's used to prevent bad bacteria from growing on food and that helps to preserve food so that it can be eaten at a later date. Using a brine, which Miss Amanda will explain for us later, but is a mixture of vinegar, water, and salt, this brine creates an acidic environment where bacteria cannot grow. By putting our vegetables or other foods into this brine, it allows us to preserve our vegetables, meaning that they last longer and can be eaten at a later time when if they were kept fresh, they might go bad and start to rot. Now, we talked about earlier how most people think about pickles as the cucumber pickles that they see in the store, but in reality, you can pickle a lot of different things. Vegetables like carrots, onions, radishes, like we'll see today, okra, mushrooms, all of these things are things that you can pickle. You can even pickle things like fruit, you can pickle berries, you can pickle eggs, you can even pickle meat. There's a lot of different things that we can pickle. Today, we're going to learn how to pickle radishes with Miss Amanda, because they're seasonal to our garden and are growing as we speak. Now that we have a clearer idea of what pickling is and what we can pickle, let's send it over to Miss Amanda, who's in her kitchen with some fresh radishes that she's harvested from the Greenheart garden, and learn from her how we complete the pickling process. For today's pickling lesson, you'll need veggies, fruits, or a food to pickle, a sterile jar to put your pickles in, vinegar, water, iodized salt, pickling spices like fennel, dill, celery, or red pepper, and a knife and cutting board to prepare your pickling mix. Are you ready? Me too. Over to you, Miss Amanda.
Hey Greenheart buddies, I'm here in the kitchen after harvesting our veggies from the garden and I'm ready to pickle. My first step before any cooking lesson is washing my hands and the food I'm preparing. wash my hands and the veggies I'm going to pickle, I'm going to make my brine. A brine is just a pickling solution that helps preserve the food. It's vinegar. You can use, this is white, distilled white vinegar, right? You could also use apple cider vinegar. Really any type of vinegar will do. So I've got vinegar, I've got 1 cup of water, and I've got salt. So it's equal parts water and vinegar. I'm going to go ahead and mix these. I've got 1 cup of water. Now I've got 1 cup water, 1 cup vinegar. One tablespoon salt. Now I could just mix it and pickle just like this. I'd want to mix the salt in really well. But I'm going to put mine in a saucepan on the stove top to just blend the vinegar, water, and salt together. Next, I'm going to grab my jar, which has been sterilized, so I washed it with hot soapy water and I let it dry completely. And I'm going to prepare my veggies. So these are my radishes that I harvested from the garden, and I'm going to decide which way I want to chop them up, and then I'm going to fill my jar. It's always important when using a knife in the kitchen that we always ask an adult for supervision. This is a sharp knife, so I want to make sure that I'm staying safe. I bear claw, I tuck my fingers in as I cut, and I always keep my eye on the knife. If I'm not using it, it is down and away. If I needed to pass it, I would pass it downwards like this. Alright, Betty, now that I have cut up all my radishes that I'm going to pickle, it looks like there's still some room in the jar. So remember, I said that we could pickle almost anything. So I went into my fridge and looked for other things that I could add to my pickle mixture. I found a handful of green beans, a quarter of an onion, and 2 cloves of garlic that I'm going to put into my pickle mixture. Getting close. With garlic, I like to just take the whole clove, take my knife sideways and squish it down, and then peel off the outer layer. Once my brine got to a boil, or almost to a boil in my saucepan, I transferred it to a bowl. So the vinegar, water, and salt are all mixed in together now. I'm going to transfer this to the refrigerator for a bit to cool off. is if I poured this onto my veggies hot, it would start to cook my vegetables, and we like our pickles nice and crunchy. Now that I've got my brine cooling and I've got all my veggies in my jar and ready to go, it's time to add the spices. So I've got a ton of different options here, and you can do this lots of different ways, okay? So really, most spices will go well in your pickle mixture, but we can use our kind of taste testing rules and smelling to figure out which ones we might want to put in there. So this is my fresh dill I harvested from the garden. I'm gonna smell it. I know that I really enjoy dill pickles, so that is gonna be similar to the flavor that we taste in the cucumber pickles that I might put on my sandwich. So I'm definitely gonna put some fresh dill in there. You could also use dried dill. Next, I have some oregano. This to me smells like pizza, and I know that I really like oregano. And this could also go in dried, so I'm gonna add those two things as my fresh herbs. Then I've got a mixture here of other things. I have this mixture of herbes de Provence, which is just a fancy word for a mixture of lots of different things. It's got thyme, rosemary, basil, tarragon, to name a few. So I'm gonna smell this and look at it. I know that I like most of those things in there, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of this one as well. Next, I've got red chili pepper flakes. I'm gonna add just a little bit of this. I like my pickles a little bit spicy, but not too spicy. Can't handle too much spice. And then I've got this anise seed, which is a whole pod. You can see those, and those smell just like licorice. So I like the taste, but I'm probably just gonna add maybe like 3 of those. I don't want it to taste too much like licorice. I've added all my spices. I've got my veggies waiting. Now once my brine cools, that's my last step to my pickling solution. All right, Veggies, my brine of white vinegar, water, and salt has cooled off, and I'm going to add it to my pickles. So I poured just enough to cover all of the veggies all the way to the top. I'm gonna let it sit for a second and gently tap it. Might also grab a spoon, a clean spoon, and stick it in here just to release any of the air bubbles. Next, I'm gonna put my lid on, nice and tight. Make sure it's nice and tight, and then I'm gonna shake it. Make sure that the liquid and all of the spices are all around the different veggies in there. And if I was in our Green Heart lessons, I might give this a name, a fun name. Simply radishing. And my last and final step is to put it in the refrigerator. And as a reminder, we've made refrigerator or quick pickles. So I wouldn't want to just go stick this on my shelf, not in the refrigerator. In order to do that, I would have needed to boil the jar to really seal it, and I would have been a lot more careful about how clean everything was. But these I can put in the refrigerator and I can eat them. They'll be nice and pickled within a couple of days, and I can eat them for up to 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm probably going to eat them quicker than that. All right, Green Heart community, I had so much fun harvesting radishes and herbs and making pickles with you today in my kitchen, and I can't wait to see all of the different recipes that you all create. Bye!